Welcome to Draw Process, weekly video series where I draw a comic book page and talk about my mindset and techniques and things. This time, page 41 of First Sun and Sword, my comic. We are in the climactic battle with the main villain for this episode, King Croc. And I may have thumbnailed this already. I'm going to find out, and I'm going to finish it if I need to, and then draw the page, and then piece it together and do a voiceover to present it to you guys.
And here's the thumbnail for page 41. The one on the left, that's page 40 from last week. I decided to change this after rethinking the flow of the page. So what we have here is Sword and King Croc lunges maybe twice, and Sword slashes him twice, and then Sword starts to run away. So what I'm trying to do is redo this thumbnail here to get a better visual flow. So a lot of times you'll hear about an S shape, or the viewer's going to read left to right and then down like a zigzag, down and back to the left and then to the right again. And Phil Hester, I had talked about it last week. I saw him at a convention, and he's a master at that for sure. And he looked at the pages for this, and he thought that I should do a lot more of that than I was. So I can see how the choices I was making on this page were not involving that very much. So I'm making an attempt to. And the idea is, does the page feel more like its own piece? It's not just panel 1, 2, 3, 4, and they happen to be on a page together, but the page as a whole feels like one piece of art. So, yeah, it's more design too. Sorry, I'm having some allergies. And so I'm trying to think like that, instead of just what is the best angle to capture this particular action, what would be best to move the eye. So, with the Sharpie here, I'm going over the pencils and double checking my choices. So we have Croc and Sword in the first panel, and the angle on the floor tiles and the heavy shadow on Sword there is bringing your eye slightly down and to the right on the first panel, and then in the next panel it's going to be from that more down position up to the right, and then a large block of shadow under King Croc, and his head there is pointing toward, and the shadow where he's going to be lunging forward in the next panel. And it kind of makes a tangent that the chunk of black under King Croc aligns with the body of King Croc in the next panel. This is to make it even flow even more directly, like more strongly, that the eye will go right through that shadow into King Croc's body. Then and then King Croc's angle and shadow lead the eye, let's say, to Sword, who's running, and right down in the corner by his leg is a close-up of his feet and a small cut-in panel, that box there. And then coming off of that is Sword leaping back toward King Croc, and kind of have the grid on the floor. Even his sword is pointing to and joining with that square panel of his feet. Trying to implement more of that. And it makes for a different page, because I also really like the reader to see the world, see the room and the space that people are in. And that is in opposition to creating a flowing page that has graphic design to it in that way. They are in opposition to each other, I believe, because if I show a very clear shot, it's probably going to be more so like in film, just like a full shot. A shot in itself is composed differently even than a shot that's meant to be included with a set of panels on a page. But you end up making choices about where to position figures and shadows and background elements based on how it's going to help the page look and flow as a whole. But that can actually limit how much of the background you're going to see, and those sorts of things. So it's a push and pull, I think. One thing I'm trying to do let's see, I'm 2 pages ahead of this one at this point, and one of the things I'm trying to do is let the energy that is in the thumbnail be present in the final page. If I figure everything out in the thumbnail, then the page can lose the spontaneity. Because in some sense, you're kind of copying what's on the thumbnail instead of just doing your quick expression. If you think of like someone doing a rough sketch of like a thumbnail of a pose for their figures, and then they're going to do a finished piece, and they're looking at that, and then they're making a finished piece. And a lot of the energy, like this here, this sketch of sword here, there's a lot of energy in this pose, and it's very expressive. If I were to do that in the thumbnail to try to quickly get the idea down, and then come to this page and just start to try to correct it, let's say, then I'm in a whole different mindset, and I'm not going to be able to draw with that kind of energy. And that's why I've been trying to, on the page, for one, which this is helping, but I think there's more I need to do. I'm trying to keep my drawings very very loose, and just get the basic ideas down on the paper, and then go back and detail in the pencils rather than fully finish each panel, because then it keeps me in a kind of thumbnailing style of loose penciling. It makes me stay in that space for a while instead of trying to jump back and forth. But I want to do it even more so. So I think the trick is thumbnails are still important to me. I'm not going to work digitally. That would be a way that you could literally take your thumbnail and turn it into pencils. And I don't really want to blow it up, print it out, and lightbox it. So I would like to try to not get too detailed in the thumbnail. Leave some things to be figured out, leave it even rougher than I was. And that's a delicate balance, because if the backgrounds are complicated architecturally or whatever, then I want to work those things out ahead of time, oftentimes. And I don't want to skimp on the designing of the flow of the page that I'm trying to do more of. But if the figures are more than stick figures, then I might be going too far. Because then I end up looking at that drawing and trying to get the same energy on the page. Like I'm almost like redoing it. It'd be better to just do it on the page and have that energy. So that's one thing that I think will help. Another thing, changing pencils sometimes helps me. If I use like a lighter hard pencil at first, which I've been getting where I just use one pencil, but if I use a lighter pencil first, it helps me remember not to add too much detail because I can't, in a way. Like it doesn't take to the paper as much. So it's an easy reminder to not add too much detail, and then I can switch to this pencil, which is my typical, which is like an H. So it's soft enough to leave a lot of lead on the paper. So and darken it up and add those details. So yeah, that's an option. What else? Yeah, I mean that's the main thing, I think. If I can construct, maybe do more of the drawing construction on the page and less in the thumbnail, because the construction part of it is when I have to do these loose figures. And that's where there's certain energy that gets captured that I don't want to lose. That has me thinking of another point. The word balloons are such an important part of the flow of the page, and lately they've been kind of an afterthought, and that relates to my script not being as clear and solid. Something that's evolving. So sometimes I don't have words. Like this page, I don't think I have any words planned for, but I also don't like to leave silent pages. I like to find something to say. But I should plan for that at this point. In the thumbnail and pencil, I should have the word balloons planned. That way I can incorporate it into the flow of the page, and figure out what they're going to say. Yeah, that's another point that I have been slacking on, and I can do that much better. Because that really is the goal. My goal is to do finished story, communicate with a full story, not just draw a page of art. Let's see. What else is there to say? I'm debating on doing some more conventions next year that'll cost me more money. And there's, a big balancing act of like, if I go, I get to network. There might be opportunities that, but I kind of know what I'm doing with my own books anyways. So I'm not necessarily looking for paid work opportunities. But networking is always good. Like you get energy and insight and work opportunities or publishing opportunities. Even just a cover on a book or something, right? That's a good reason to go to a convention, but then there's also, well, you get stuck at your table sometimes and you don't network that much. And then there's the cost of getting a table versus just attending, and then the cost of losing a weekend. And losing the money for that trip that could have been used to print a beautiful book, work on something, or whatever. So, because where I'm at right now, I don't know. I haven't done big enough conventions, I guess, too. But I don't make a lot of money at conventions, and they don't really pay for themselves, and that seems to be a common thing for artists. And especially writers, but artists too. So it's a cost out of pocket to go, is what it comes down to. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to go to like Planet Comic Con in Kansas City for one. So when it comes to the flow of these images, it does help that this room has multiple light sources, and so I can kind of put shadows wherever I want to. But the choice of putting Sword's back in shadow in both of those first two panels, and putting the shadow cast on the floor and the last one off of Croc's head, those choices are for the flow of the page, to help move the eye, and so that and to separate foreground and background of the image, Sword from Croc. So, like there's flexibility, and I think it's a good thing to exercise that kind of flexibility, because you can make a prettier page, make it flow better, instead of being married to reality and saying, well, the light is here, so we have to put the shadow on this side, and so on. This panel right here caused me some difficult challenges. I knew it related to this new focus on designing the page. I knew that I wanted King Croc to enter this panel from that angle, but my original drawing had the horizon too low so that it looked like he was leaping high into the air. Like, to get him at that angle, he must have leaped through the air and had on a return arc down towards the ground. And I didn't want it to look like he did that, so I had to raise the horizon line, or you could say raise the camera up looking more down, so that this angle I need his body at for the design works with the background. So what I had already drawn, I had to erase and keep refining to get it in position. And that would have been unnecessary if I wasn't trying to design it so well. I could have just drawn what was in my mind, done. Which is why I tended to do it that way. It's faster. I can just draw what I see in my mind and move on. But this is that extra step, the extra level of challenge. And this room is challenging too, because Sun is on the floor behind Sword here, and I like the clarity of the visual of King Croc here with Sword running away from him. I don't want anything to interfere with that silhouette, that clear view of these two forms, these two figures. But if Sun is behind Sword, kind of peeking out from behind him, then it starts to maybe create tangents, maybe just break that clear silhouette, that clear foreground elements of Croc and Sword. So I keep adjusting the perspective on the background for that reason too, that it allows me to move where Sun is located, which is what I'm doing here. There was nothing wrong with my first choice, but by moving it back, I can push Sun further up the page, further away from Sword. And that's why there's this change. And I think that is a higher level of skill or challenge, artistry. When you're newer at this, the first challenge is to draw a figure in a three-dimensional space. These are the challenges that consume your mental energy. But then to move things around for storytelling, style, and design purposes, and to have that kind of flexibility it's like another level of difficulty or challenge. So, I guess it was the call from Phil Hester to meet that challenge, to kind of step into that way of thinking more, and it was just at the right time, because I feel like that is that is the challenge. Like that does feel like the right thing to do next. And yeah, it's really nice to see the result. I'm really liking what it's doing to my pages, how they're looking in the end. To me, does look better. So it's really good to see, to figure this step out, this piece of the puzzle, to start figuring that out more. And then I'm already thinking about the next story I'm going to write and how I get to go into a new story with this in mind from the start. Yeah, you can see here as how Sword, I've just about got him out of the outline of Sword. I've moved him up the page quite a bit there. I am thinking about the story for the next issue, the next episode. This one's going to be like 60 pages, so I have a while before I have to do it. But I've had a few ideas in my head, and then I've got a big document where I've worked out a lot of the details of this world. So I have possibilities in mind, but there's so many different ways I could go, and I'm trying to figure out what's going to feel right. Like, do we focus on Farah for a while? Do we focus on Sun more? What's the sort of the shift or change in feel of the story from this issue? Because it's not going to be this story again. Like, I'm not just going to tell the same kind of story again. It's going to be a little different next time. So I'm trying to figure that out. And so I listen to writers giving advice on how to write, and compelling stories, compelling characters. I think about my characters. I take notes on their values, their personality, what they want in life, all this kind of stuff, to try to really like fill out who these people are. I heard of an example of like the same way that you could keep a journal or a diary for your own thoughts and stuff. You could actually keep a diary of your character. You could kind of make it like a diary. They're telling what they want, how they see the world, and what they want. And that seems like a great thing to do. So I don't know that I'll actually implement that, but I've done some of that already. And I'm thinking about that because at the end of the day, I am telling a story. It's not just drawing cool pictures or making a comic book's, visual. It's a story, and if it's a compelling story, then it's going to be more successful, and I will be more proud of it. It'll be a greater accomplishment than if it's just well drawn, let's say. So so much of it goes back to the story. And how to capture that lightning, that magic, that would have it really connecting with an audience this is always in my mind, thinking of how to do that better. I think I'm learning more lately. After all the books I've made, I've been learning more than I have before about how to do that, and I just have to practice. I just have to implement it, I think. This is my best attempt yet with this book, and then I'm going to have to keep learning as I go with practice. Because I can't just learn to write in isolation because I make comic books. I have to write and draw, and work on anatomy and work on the design and everything. It all has to be done. So I can't sacrifice other aspects of it just to pursue one. Not at this point. Maybe there was a time I could have, and other people are welcome to do that. It may be in their best interest to do so, but for me, it feels right to keep this train moving. Same thing in this last panel. I had to position the room so that Sun is not conflicting with Sword's body. That they have a slight overlap a little bit at their knee, but it's not really a tangent. It's not making it unclear. So yeah, the story. I don't know, the feeling that something is being some sort of conflict about how one should live is made very clear in the story. So that people see themselves in the main character and in the other side characters that sometimes take a more main role, that they see themselves in the character. That they see a substantial problem to be dealt with, and they want to see how it can be dealt with in a beautiful way. Yeah, it's interesting. And the more I think about it, the less sure I am what I want to write next, because, and at some point I'll just have to make a choice. But yeah, I guess make a choice and write it, but also, I can write a few. I could write a few episodes and pick my favorite, because the other ones might be useful at another time. One thing that occurs is, as we move to a new location in this world I'm inventing, there's going to be different political structures, different weird things that are shown. So it's like I have to design a whole different world each time in a way, which I'm also thankful that I built it that way, because that gives me practice at that part of this too. But yeah, it's not only working out what are the characters dealing with, what's their problems, and how are they going to solve them. It's, okay, where should I put them? What world will they be in? And it has to be designed and planned out. So yeah, it's a big endeavor. I need to be thinking about it now because it's a big endeavor. So I put some thought into it now before we get there here in 20 weeks or less. But what might happen is if I may just give myself like a month or something in between this issue and the next one to work out the story for the next one. Work in the sketchbook, design the new characters and worlds a little bit in the sketchbook, and write the whole story. Now, if I do that and I take a break from drawing pages in this draw process series, then I will share my process doing that. So it wouldn't be a break from this. It would just be a different focus on the writing, which I've wanted to do. I've wanted to share more about the writing process. So it could be useful for everybody if I take a little time in between this issue and the next one. Yeah, you can see here that I pulled out the pencil to add a few more details. There were things on the floor in that room that needed to be there. There's a skull, there's a femur bone, and some chains, a little bit of like chains and handcuffs. So I had to get those in the room. You'll notice the shadows underneath King Croc and Sword here. They are just like not clear blobs that just swirl, like they follow the curve. So you see that arc of, Sword is moving in this curve and Croc is the other part of the curve. They kind of go in this circle, and the shadows follow that same spiral shape. So that's, you know, bending reality to my will, bending things to what will have a better image. So the shadow kind of moving in that direction is going to make it look better, but it's less realistic. For some people, for me, it can be a challenge to break from reality with the visual and the story too, just to be more creative, more dreamy about it. And I love seeing books where the artist has this strong visual vision that doesn't feel like reality. It feels like their own reality. It's like we're dreaming the dream of their dream, right? And so that's something I keep in mind. I definitely want to develop more of that ability to present to people a dream. Because that's the kind of stuff that excites me. To show people what's possible. And not just like what's possible in a story, but a whole different way of seeing the world. I'm going in and adding a little bit of texture throughout the page. Not very much. I like to keep it very clean and simple, but just a few marks on the stone, on the scales. I like some of that. But it's hard to say because I kind of like to just quit doing it altogether. I've moved away from it substantially because it's unnecessary. Where to position shadows on the croc body is a challenge and a weird thing. There's the large shapes on his back create shadow, and the three-dimensional form of the crocodile is kind of hard to capture too. So yeah, it's a weird one. And I just make it up. It's not totally accurate, but if it can be glanced at, I don't know. Like, it is showing people my dreams. So if it doesn't have to be an accurate crocodile, but it has to look like authentic, genuinely my dream, and not an attempt at a right way to do it that I missed the mark on, because that'll pull people right out of the dream. I like my books to be easy to read, not too many words, flow very easily. That also to help people not get pulled out of the dream. But yeah, to pick up a book and enter that dream is really cool. So there's the page. The first, I think. Yeah, this would be the first one where I'm making an extra effort to create flow through the page. And I think you can see it. I can. When you look at the full page there is something graphically pleasing, design-wise pleasing about the way this flows. And so that feels nice. It's nice to learn something. I keep saying I'm just a beginner still, and that's great when I get to learn something new. And Yeah, so much of this too is like being motivated, like getting that feedback was also like motivating. The conversation and someone believing in you and giving you some hope, that helps. And just, you know, it's like the difference between waking up in the morning and struggling to get out of bed because you're just not looking forward to anything, or like feeling tired at the end of the day versus like, yeah, you're tired at the end of the day, but then you get something exciting soon and you're like, you just feel alive because you're suddenly very excited, and it's just a change in mood. You're just as tired as you would have been, but your mood's changed, and that's something else I'm trying to do because I see it after getting that feedback. I approached the work of doing the page with more energy and more hope, and I want to keep that alive. I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, there's the discipline of putting in the work, sitting down and doing the work. But you can't doing it just like a zombie mindlessly isn't doing it well. Bringing my passion to it is doing it well, and I'm trying to learn how to do that better than I have been. And here's the finished page. This is draw process. There's a whole series of these. This is page 41, and you can see all the other 40 pages and my thoughts for the week in all the other videos. And you can read this whole comic at ikecomics.com and all of my old comics. At some point, I need to make a series where I spotlight my different stories. Maybe that would be more writing focused. I could talk about the writing decisions and things involved with each of those stories. Anyways, thanks for watching. Be the practice of your art. That's what I'm trying to do over here, and encourage others to do the same. See you next week.